Welcome to another episode of the Tim Moen Show. I'm glad you're with us. I hope you're having a great day. This world is getting really surreal, isn't it? What is going on? Sometimes it feels like I'm in an alternate universe. I've woken up in an alternate timeline or something like that. Things just get stranger and stranger between rail derailments in Ohio, lockdowns, vaccines, people transitioning and then detransitioning and suing the government, trucker convoys, and now, ladies and gentlemen, the latest news coming out of the heart of our Laurentian elite, the Globe and Mail, is that CSIS is releasing documents that China interfered in the Canadian election. CSIS is the Canadian intelligence agency, similar to I guess would be the CIA or something like that. And they have let the Canadian government know, apparently, that China's been interfering in our election. So here to talk about that is the Canadian Libertarian, Bennett Hunter. Oh, shit. Okay, there we go. New to this streaming stuff, Bennett. But hey, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Long time no see, fellow Canadian Libertarian. What's going on here with this China stuff? What are we to make of this?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing that popped in my head when I started hearing about the story is like, here we go once again. I tell you, folks, if you want to have some good insight, I wouldn't suggest neither of us are psychologists here, but projection seems to be the name of the game when you're talking about the Trudeau Liberals in particular, because every time I see them accusing, whether it's Trump, right? Remember the whole Trump-Russia collusion thing, right?
Right.
Well, it turns out that, yes, there was definitely some election meddling and interference going on, but it was up here north of the U.S. border,
right
here in old Kanakistan. And yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, now we know, and basically what CSIS, based on everything that I've been reading multiple articles out of, like you say, the Globe Mail and even Blacklock's and stuff. And from what I'm gathering is in 2019 and 2021, both elections, were affected. And when you're talking about the difference between a minority and a majority government, and with our first past the post system in Canada, I mean, I'm sure someone's out there digging it to figure out how many writings you would need to affect to actually fully flip an election or to change it from one side to the other. But it seems that, from what I'm saying, at least 11 in one of the elections, but 11 writings that can be flipped, that's a substantial. And like I say, we don't know exactly the totality of how that is affected, but we could possibly, the truth of the fact could very well be that we're living in a country where, the election was not legitimate, right?
Right. Well, now, and it's not, I was reading, it's not just, influencing the public, but it's actually getting, China or CCP sympathetic individuals into places of power, right? Into MP's office, into, bureaucracies. So China is no doubt putting people that are sympathetic to the communist regime there in these key places of influence in Canada in the government. What does that mean, Bennett, for Canadians? I mean, what should we be worried about here?
Well, I mean, in reality, as you and I both know as libertarians, it just, to me, the biggest concern is obviously that, maybe the current ruling establishment isn't exactly as we would expect. There's obviously a lot of heavy influence, but I did want to actually bring something up out of the Globe Mail. Let me just bring it up here. Actually, I'm going to send you the link, Tim.
Okay.
Because then you can put this right on the stream. I'll send it there on the old back on Facebook as a message here. Anyways, while you're doing that, I'll just kind of mention just that the headline to it right now is CSIS reports outline how China targets Canadian politicians and business leaders. But if you read down in through the article, not sure if you want to read it in its entirety or not. But
I'm just pulling it up here. Let's see. Shift S. Chrome tab. Okay. So here's the article.
Oh shoot! Yeah, you don't have it fully opened on your end. Damn.
Yeah, I got to pay for the Globe and Mail, and that ain't happening.
Okay. Well, anyways, yeah, I don't either, but I don't know how I got it. But I have.
You probably get a certain number of logins.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so let me just maybe myself, at least you can see that, and if you want post a link to this, when we're done, so that people can read this for themselves if they can. But
Sure.
I'll just read a couple of the portions here that I found, quite disturbing. So Canadian politicians, officials, and business executives are the prime targets of Chinese government espionage that employs blackmail, bribery, and sexual seduction with the country, even enlisting the Bank of China in its foreign influence activities. Secret and top secret Canadian Security Intelligence Service documents viewed by the Globe and Mail outline how China instructed its consulate and visa offices to alert Beijing to prominent and influential Canadians planning to visit China. In addition, the Bank of China has been told to inform consulates of travel plans of Canadian business executives attending conferences sponsored by the state-owned financial institution, according to a February 2nd, 2022 intelligence report that is rated top secret. Okay. Oh, other highly classified documents viewed by the Globe paint a picture of broad Chinese strategy to interfere in Canada's democracy and gain influence over politicians, corporate executives, academics, and vulnerable Chinese Canadians. The overall goal is to obtain political, economic, scientific, and military intelligence and neutralize or co-opt Canadian critics of Chinese politics, including repression of the Uyghurs and Tibetans, the crackdown on free speech and democracy in Hong Kong, and its designs on Taiwan. Beijing has said it reserves the right to use force to annex Taiwan, a self-ruled island it considers a breakaway province. Now here, this is where it's a little more interesting here too, as well, is this a realistic threat that all of our partners are facing is not just about electoral interference. It is multi-pronged, said national security expert Akshay Singh, a fellow at the Council of International Policy. It's about different levels of government. It is about academia. It is about civil society, and it's about private enterprise. Actually, I think that was probably the most important part. But anyways, like I say, so this is something based on this report. And like I say, there's a lot to it. It's quite a long article, to be honest with you. And like I say, it's definitely something that you might want to get a chance to check out for yourself. But basically what this tells you is it's permeating through, multiple aspects of our culture, like academia. I mean, not like we weren't already highly suspicious of this.
Right.
But the fact that they're using things such as bribery and, things in terms of using, things that they've caught them, maybe something in the past in terms of sexual activities. So I myself, I'm not sure about you, but I myself have constantly been concerned. Now I know, a lot of people that work in the government, the bureaucracy, sign NDAs, but I can't help but think, because I've always wondered, did Canadians really flip that much on me? My fellow citizens, have they really flipped so much on me that there's nobody anymore that, wants to? Well, obviously there are still few whistleblowers, and this one's rated CSIS, but the limited amount of pushback against the kind of tyrannical or overreach of government was quite disturbing. But I'm starting to see that there's some underlying reasoning there that's that's not just my suspicions, but now it's being confirmed that not only are the NDAs an effect or a cause, but now you have the fact that people, just to protect their own asses too, right?
Well, let's put ourselves in a CSIS bureaucrat's shoes for a second here.
Right.
Here we've learned that the Chinese government, this all-powerful CCP, the basic dictatorship that Trudeau lauds on and praises, has influenced the election and helped install a liberal government. We know that it's a liberal government that they helped install. Those are the ones that were most favorable to the CCP. And now we have Justin Trudeau in there for another term. And what happens to you now if you leak this and say, hey, maybe this wasn't legit? Maybe we got to run it back, or maybe we got to look very carefully at how the Trudeau government went in there. What kind of ripples are going to play out of this? It could trigger another election. It could trigger all sorts of uprisings and unrest in Canada. So, you can see how it doesn't necessarily, how it just, all it takes is a basic instinct for self-preservation to see why you might sit on an inflammatory report like this and release it to the public.
Right. Well, and another thing too, and I don't know how this all ties in together, but you can see, and I mean, I've watched articles now or read articles now where they talk about these 5-year plans. I mean, just everything that I've seen, I'm not sure. I think we've talked prior, and were you familiar with, and I'll even still mention alleged, right? Alleged, because there's no proof of it, but there was this liberal letter from an insider. Were you aware of that? I covered it in a couple past lives.
Yeah, I remember something about this. Yeah.
Right. So it basically laid out the plan, right, for the COVID response.
Yeah.
And it definitely seemed like point by point, it was definitely something that was a fully centrally planned type of a thing.
Right.
And as a means to coerce and cajole the population, more or less something along the lines of what the social credit score in China would be. So it seemed like almost
Sure.
like a copy and paste type of methodology to get Canadians on board. And if
Maybe.
you read it in its entirety, you're talking about, not just the whole vaccine passport. All of it actually, the only thing that didn't actually prove or come to fruition as of yet is the universal basic income. But the Liberals definitely introduced it. And I believe the only reason why it wasn't implemented so far is because when the election was called in 2021, it goes off and then you have to bring it back and all that stuff, right? But and now today, another thing. So you have this letter. And now another thing, I've got a copy of something is Blacklock's reported on it. And there's this paper now. I'll send that to you as well if you want. It's basically lays out for the digital ID what kind of information that the government is going to require for that. Let me find that and I'll actually send that to you so you can maybe put that up on your on the screen here. And once again, I'm mentioning to everyone here, this is stuff that's not been independently verified. So, I don't want to give people any pretense that, you should just take this, as if it's gospel, right? But it's, once again, based on the history, based on the things that have played out, it's at least highly suspicious and at least has the potential to be legitimate. So these are things to at least be aware of. And if you want, Tim, actually, it'd be great if you could just bring that up onto the screen.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then see, and maybe we can go through it together, basically the kind of information, the private Canadian information that would be associated with something like this. And I also recognize that the digital ID thing is something that Canadians seem to be willing to jump on board with, especially if they think that it might benefit the healthcare system in some way, right?
Well, yeah, I mean,
wait, is that the letter? Maybe I sent you the wrong
letter.
thing.
For those who may have forgotten, here's your
Okay, sorry, I think I sent you the wrong one here. That's just the letter. Never mind that. Don't worry about that. Let me find the one that I was looking for. Where did that go now? That was the letter, was it? Trying to find it here, Tim. Sorry about that, man. Where did that thing go? Or maybe I might have to go back on to, did I even download it? Surely I downloaded it.
What are you looking for?
It's a copy of what seemed to be the form you would have to fill out in the eventual result of digital ID coming to Canada. Basically a template with the kind of questions that would be on it.
Oh, I see. So,
okay, hold on here. Let me just check something out here.
I mean, all these things, like this letter that outlines what the plan is for COVID-19. I mean,
okay, I got it. Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, my impression of it when I first read it was, well, yeah, this is obviously, I could have written this because this is just what you would predict would happen if you think that public health is a good thing for the government to control, right? I mean, if that's what you think, then everything the government did makes some logical sense, is rational. And most people think public health is good. Therefore, you could expect this kind of thing. Doesn't take any kind of nefarious puppet master with the secret plan. This is exactly what people want. Yeah. So, but anyways, go ahead with your.
Okay, so I'm sending it to you now. There,
okay.
Yeah, like I sent the first one I sent was a letter, but of course the letter is not a bad thing to have either. But to me, once again, I don't, like I say, whether true or not, it's, to me, not knowledge, before things, at least gives you, even if it's wrong, even if it proves to be at least if there's even a slight potential of it being correct, at least, if you have knowledge now, you kind of know what's going down the line and you can kind of think about
Right.
these things beforehand, right? But
Okay,
it's definitely something that would be beneficial for, central planners. But it also, if you read down through it, the kind of
oh yeah,
information.
at the bottom they have credit score.
Mhm.
So this is immunization registry, public health agency. So this was the pitched, I guess, public health and Canada entrance card or something like that.
Yeah, well, this is, if you, okay, right now, so the Trudeau Liberals and the provinces were having their meetings in terms of the healthcare transfers and increasing them and getting the federal government a little bit more actively involved in healthcare. And this is the potential, once again, potential. Okay, we'll play ball, right? We'll offer to pony up more cash from the federal coffers, right? Or do this, that, or this to help implement some changes in the healthcare system. But this seems to be that this would be possibly one of the prerequisites.
So where does this come from? Is this, because I have seen this before, but I can't remember. Is this like an official government document or something someone photoshopped together? Or?
Well, this is what I mean. So this is the thing, right? I cannot independently verify whether it is. Now, it could be one or either. It could be, like you say, just someone that was, spent some time, in the evening, when they had some excess time just to make this stuff up. But I mean, it does kind of look, with the whole, I believe he even has the,
well, yeah, I mean, you've got all sorts of different vaccine statuses on it. You've got suicide attempt, previous vaccine refusal, known allergies, gender identity, sexual orientation, smoker, previously institutionalized. So, I mean, this basically, it's got whether you have your PAL or our PAL, whether your firearms license, whether you've been on a no-fly list, whether you've got warrants out, whether you have access to fertilizer. I mean, and if this is, one could imagine, look, I could make a case if I'm a blue-pilled statist, like most people are, I can make a very easy case as to why we need something like this, right? It's not so the difficulty we face, unfortunately, Bennett, is how do we tackle blue pill statism? It's not like revealing something like this is not shocking to someone. Like I had one of my buddies on my very first episode. I don't know if you listened to it. Normie John, right?
I sure did. And
and I mean, listen, he's a great guy. He's part of my men's group, and he challenges me. I challenge him. He's a coworker, and stand up in personal life. But he has a typical normie view. But the thing about him is that he's also really good at arguing for the blue pill normie view as well. Right now, he would look at this just like we brought up 15-minute cities on that episode, and he's like, well, there's no plans for this, and blah blah blah. And I basically said, but if there was a plan for this, condensed down to what I said to you, basically, you would be in favor of it, right? Like you could be easily convinced to lock people in their neighborhoods or restrict traffic and different things. Well, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I definitely could be sold on that idea. Well, why couldn't you be sold on this idea too? Like, so this idea about looking for these nefarious conspiracies and see normie blue pill person, wake up, take the red pill, goddammit. There's something nefarious happening there. They'll look at that and go, well, you know what? If our government says this is good, this is probably a good thing. Yeah, like, it's good. Like, to know whether you've had previous suicide attempts and stuff. Like, I don't want you having a gun if you've had previous suicide attempts or DUIs or if you've refused the vaccine before, that says something about you, and maybe you're antisocial. Maybe you should, this is a good thing, Bennett. Why wouldn't we? So, we're looking at all this stuff, and our minds are being blown, but at the same time, I wonder sometimes if we're not like trying to hack away at branches and ignoring the roots here. And the root is that we've got blue-pilled status, thinking blue-pilled status things, and seeing everything through that lens.
Yeah.
And we got to strip that fucking lens off and you know, give them the what was that that show where Roddy Piper has the glasses where where he sees everything for what it is and no one else can
Oh
see
yeah,
it for what
right.
it is.
Yeah. Actually,
I came here to chew bubble gum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubble gum. I think it comes from that movie or whatever. But anyways,
actually, can I just respond to that, Tim?
Yeah.
Actually, 'cause when I was watching it, it was just like when the odd time and I'm watching a movie or something, and you just want to. I know yelling at the screen isn't going to do me one bit of good, but I still have the habit of trying to do it. And when you were having a conversation, I was like, Tim, I wish I could have been a bug in your ear, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because in reality, I get you. And actually, I've done this now that I'm back working in where I was and doing the truck driving thing. And actually, I test this out a lot because, like you say, there's so many different ways you can approach things, and usually it's just a big wall that gets put up, typically, right? Whether it's cognitive dissonance or they just support, whatever the reason. But what I have found that works great, because no matter who you're talking about, people on the left, right, or anywhere in between, they claim at least is they stand for things that are virtuous, or at least, you know, they would consider based on principles or some kind. He even brought up the word ethics, right? When you had that conversation with him, he brought it out. So to me, it's like, okay, if we're going to have this conversation, right? Just like if I'm going to build an engine, I have to start with the platform and stuff and know the fundamental basics. Okay, so what are your guiding principles? I would have wanted to ask this gentleman.
Right.
What are your guiding principles in life? And can you explain to me your ethics, you know, and how you approach them? Because I think at that point in time, that's the easy, like it kind of, and then you don't have to necessarily do the catch. They'll get it in their own mind the minute you point out the very real fact. Well, if you agree that you shouldn't have the ability or the pretense authority to impose what you think is good for you, or maybe what you think is good for your family, hey, I'm all for it. You do you, right? The difference is, because we live in this thing called a democracy in a country, what you choose and decide and vote for has a great and a tremendous effect on me. So, you know, if you want to have, you know, these digital IDs and you want to have government, you know, maybe have control over many aspects of your social and economic life from cradle to grave, you know, that's on you, but you don't get to make that choice or override my choice that I don't want. I don't need, I don't require, right? Anyone to control, dictate. Now, I will agree with anybody in my locality, my community, my province, the country, that all do the reciprocal thing that you would expect of yourself, the golden rule, right? Which is, I won't preemptively vote for or use the mob or support anyone trying to tyrannize you or impose my will or my preferences on you. All I ask in return is that you do the same. And I think once you get, like, to me, that if you get that, then all the rest of the argument, it's just semantics. It's just a matter of, oh, I want this or I want this. It's just like the socialists, that, you know, the bleeding heart about the healthcare. Listen, I care tremendously about not just my family, and mostly it is my family. And I'm at least one of the few people that's awesome enough that, I prioritize me and my family and those I care over people I have no clue or have no relationship with. But the point is, if you genuinely care, if the point is that you want people to be healthy as long as possible and have access to good health care, well, as we've seen now, there was a 3-year experiment. It was a beautiful thing. Forget about the hypothesis, right? Or some academic study. This was a real world experiment that failed miserably, failed so miserably that a lot of our fellow Canadians, right, not just died or got severely ill, but lost business. And now, I mean, you know, it's easy to get caught up in the fog of, oh, I just don't know what's going on. But like I say, 3 years later, we all know with 100 validity, and nobody can deny it anymore. Never prevented transmission, and it never prevented you from getting it. So what the fuck was the point of a lockdown? What was the point of a mandate? Right. There's no science, and you don't hear anyone anymore. You hear anybody in the establishment talk about it was all based on science? Not a word, not a lick of it anymore, right?
Yeah.
So like I say, and that's the point of why it's important for me and you to show with, like right now, I'm just showing you that. I don't know if that's real, but I'm going to show my moral, ethical, universally consistent stance on this thing. Whether it proves to be true or not, at least I'll be able to have the evidence to continue to show. And that's how I keep gaining credibility. And probably why I have less and less reach is because my credibility is pretty rock solid at this point, because I not that I'm a genius. It's just that my ethics, my principles mean something. They don't sway with the wind. But anyway, sorry, go ahead. I kind of get a little Say done.
Yeah, no, I mean, what you were kind of talking about there is bringing it back to the individual, right? Their individual ethics, and another it kind of reminds me of Molyneux's against me argument, right? Like,
Right.
would you you and I disagree on, say, universal health care? I won't force you to take on my view. Would you personally force me to take your view? Would you come to me, point a gun at me, take money from me, or as a healthcare practitioner, would you point a gun at me and control me and tell me how to provide healthcare by force? And
Right.
if you're a moral person, most in personal life, you would say, no, I wouldn't do that. Of course I wouldn't do that. Well, why would you ask these other people that you call the government to do that on your behalf? Isn't it? I mean, it's even more like, I would prefer you just have the dignity and the honesty to hold that gun yourself, instead of outsourcing your violence to someone else so you can wash your hands of it and say, hey, I had nothing to do with that. That's the government. And that's essentially what the government is. It's a complete outsourcing of personal responsibility. And then we wonder why, the society is the way it is. But let's bring it back to China, because that's what we started.
This is what I mean. This all ties into that stuff, right? The more centralized things are, as we've seen, works out terribly. And this seems to be, where this country seems to be heading: more centralizing of power and authority than going the opposite way. And once again, I would suggest, based on the fact that you and your coworker there had some pretty large disagreements and some divides there. Well, I mean, if you're going to respect each other as individuals, and you truly are, friendly with each other, and then I think the best thing you can do is try not to impose yourself on each other. Like I say, that to me is the biggest thing. And if once again, with the Chinese thing, then the healthcare privatization, as you've mentioned before too, right now, all these people that are on these long wait lists, right, that are suffering and dying and going through their family too, right? You got to remember that too, the families that are going through this. If you have some kind of private option rather than placed into this one size fits all type of scenario, those are the people that, if you're concerned about it, they have, well, even if you say, oh, it's only the rich that's going to use it. Well, if the rich use it, well, does that not automatically, and that's what I mean, just run that through your brain. If the rich people are using this private healthcare, does that not free up space in the public system? I mean, to me, it only makes sense that if there's less people in the line, right, it's going to, at least at the very least, reduce the potential that you may have a severe outcome as a consequence.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, it's easy to you can bring up cases and say, look, here I am. I'm a paramedic, for example, and I worked for a year on something called the community care paramedic program that our municipality was trying to implement. And it was, we have an aging population. We have a lot of seniors with low mobility and chronic problems. And if they have an urgent care issue, let's say, someone has CHF or COPD, a lung condition, and they develop a cough or cold or something like that. Well, that can develop into a life-threatening pneumonia in a week or so if left untreated. And so, but at the moment they have the cough, they don't really need to go to emerge. I mean, they don't need to clog up emerge. It's just a cough. They have mobility issues, so they can't go see their doctor. And so this is where, a healthcare practitioner like myself might go in, do some diagnostics, take some blood work, coordinate with a family physician over the phone, bring some, facilitate a prescription, do all point of care in the home treatment, and stop that thing from ever becoming a problem, and do follow-up care. And, you could spread this across the county. Of course, we want to do this kind of stuff, but the government says, no, you can't do that. And AHS, our provincial health authority, says, no, we won't allow this to be done. We're going to do it ourselves. And they have like a half-ass, maybe doing 10% of what we were willing to fund and do ourselves. And so why should I be prohibited? I would ask my people who oppose private healthcare, why should I be prohibited, me, the guy right in front of you, from providing care for a consenting and person in need in my community that can't get healthcare from the public system, who is willing to pay or willing to accept my generous donation of my time and energy? Why shouldn't I be allowed to do that? And you can't come up with a good answer for that. And you wonder why we don't have an abundance of healthcare in this country. It's because healthcare practitioners like myself are chained down. are limited to providing healthcare within a very narrow confines of the government prescribed and employed system, and that's it. So there you go.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would just say to your friend there, as well as anyone else that's listening that is more or less aligned with, you know, government initiatives, right? I would just say, think about anything in any scope of your life that doesn't have to do with government, you know, whatever it is, right? Competition, typically in every scenario, that's rare can you ever find an exception to that scenario. If there's multiple choices, right, then it gives you the option of seeing which actually, you get real world examples of which is actually going to work better. And if everybody is choosing to watch Netflix or Prime or whatever, you know, or they choose Chiquita bananas over whatever, the reason why that is, or properly in any kind of market type environment where you have the choice, it's not that someone has to force you in it. You'll see that more people, if it proves to be beneficial to more people, the people are going to automatically gravitate towards that. Whereas if you limit our scope to a one size fits all, you're leaving out so many options. And I would say it's not that I have faith necessarily in human beings, but I have at least seen enough experience enough in my life where I know that people, if you give them the ability to use their innovation and the information that's freely available to them, that they will come up with multitudes and multi-pronged ways to solve problems in society. That is, to me, so no matter which side of the fence you're on, it, at the very least, no matter, like I say, no matter what it is, healthcare, insurance, anything that you need, any service or product that you want to consume or be provided to you, then at the very least, bare minimum, allow the free market of ideas to flourish. And that gives you the ability, like I say, because there is no one thing that's going to fit everybody. But if there's multiple options, then what's best for you? I want your friend to have whatever option that he thinks is best for him. I want him to be able to have access to that, right? And all I ask in return is he's you know, respectful enough to my decisions and my preferences that he'll afford the same for me, right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, look, he's got the conservative impulse to not throw the baby out with the bathwater, to say, well, listen, these institutions emerged for a reason, and we abolish them at our own peril, or something like that, right? So that's difficult to think. But
actually, let me just respond to that, because actually I've been thinking a lot about that, and to tell you the truth, for quite a long time, I thought it was an either or choice, but in reality, it's not. When I think about it, liberty properly, I'm not asking for anyone to tear down an institution. This is the thing. For me, if I just walk up to someone and try to explain them what it even means, bare minimally, what does it mean to be a free human being? What you do with that information, that's totally up to you. I'm just offering you so that when you make your decisions, you're guided by truth and objective facts instead of someone that's giving you a good sales pitch. That's all I'm saying. Like, so there's not, I don't want, matter of fact, I said this quite a few times. No, I don't want to tear down institutions. I want other people to build different institutions and see what works best, right?
yeah,
Let's not tear down, because yes, there are definitely some areas and aspects of academia even that, you know, I would imagine that may very well be salvageable. It's not like people are not going to be educated. It could possibly be transformed, right? Or re-innovated. That's fine.
Well,
Or
you see different, you know, I think it's Jonathan Haidt is created the Heterodox University. There's a bunch of these new alternative educational facilities popping up. A lot of people are now homeschooling their kids because they're understanding that you know, public schools are not a safe place for children. Never have been, but now it's really slapping them in the face that it's not. So I think you're right. I think these alternative options or organizations or solutions or parallel societies are probably the best way to go. You know, and that's kind of the tagline of my podcast as well as, you know, trying to find ways of living free in an unfree world.
Yeah.
I can't, if I accept that I can't control government, I can control myself. I can't control the amount of freedom I have in my life to a large extent. I can increase the options available to me. I can increase the freedom available to me. So there's that. But I want to bring it back for a second to China and ask what your solution is to this issue of Chinese interference.
Okay. Actually, I just want to say one thing before we do that, because it's on my mind and I'll probably forget it, but we'll definitely get the China thing. Well, I wanted to bring this up because I just realized I haven't actually said this. I haven't even done the live stream where I brought it up myself. But I want to point out, as much as I'm no fan, but I'm seeing this and it's kind of driving me nuts about the conservatives because you brought up the term conservative there. It's like, yeah, I'm with you there. Here's the thing that I would offer to conservatives is, can you try once again? Like, this is what drives me nuts. Can you be a little consistent in your values? We know the conservatives are dead set against anyone telling them that they can't go to their church or do it right. But I mean, I'm no fan of drag time storytelling. This seems like a ridiculous thing. I don't know where the hell it came from, but when I think about on the top of my head, okay, are these people going there voluntarily? Are they taking their own kids? Now, if I would say that's probably not the greatest thing to do, but hey,
right.
You know, they're like, who am I to tell? To me, it's the conservatives are doing. They are accusing the liberals of basically being the new conservatives, right? And then they're still doubling down on the same thing. And here we libertarians are like, once again, it just comes back to, how about you do you? There's never going to be a point in time where we're all going to agree on anything. And that's literally the point of individual liberty, is you do you and I do me, as long as you're not forcing your shit on each other, right?
Well, yeah. And I mean, I look at any parent who would take their kids to drag queen story hour. I mean, what are you going to do by banning it? Are you going to save that kid? They still have a parent who would take them to that kind of thing. You don't think that's a bigger problem than the drag queen story time itself? Right. If you're a parent who does that, your kid's going to be fucked. I don't care, you know. And what are you going to do? Are you going to are you going to make all children wards of a conservative state? How's that going to work out for you? Well, it's not going to work out very well, because conservatives are just progressive driving the speed limit. So in 10 years, that's going to be a progressive state anyways. And your children are going to be fucked as it is. So, you know, now they're going to be wards of an all, you know, so it's ridiculous. And, you know, I do get a kick out of, I mean, conservatives continually make noise about these kind of side issues, right? They're branches on this tree of evil, let's say. And as fast as you lop one off, two more are going to pop up. The root of the problem here is that we have public libraries and public schools. Let's get rid of that first of all. Okay.
Right.
I mean, instead of trying to make sure that that you have your version of who should be reading to kids at a taxpayer funded public institution, or your version of what should be taught to kids in a public school, how about we just abolish those things altogether? You teach your kids what you think, or you hire a private teacher or a private school to teach your kids the curriculum you think is right. And, you know, let the best ideas win, let the best methods win. But yeah, as soon as you create this publicly funded monstrosity, it becomes a zero-sum game of, if, you know, I can impose my worldview on others for free if I'm a conservative or a liberal or a progressive. And I want that control. And I definitely don't want other people controlling it, because then they'll be imposing their view on our kids. Well, how about no one impose their view on anyone? How about we just let the market decide of free individuals? I'm with you there. I was thinking about the same thing when it comes to this stuff. I'm just kind of scratching my head going, yeah, I mean, this is horrific and like, it's terrible. And what are you going to do about it? Are you going to pull these kids out of their homes, out of their terrible, you know, progressive homes where there's no values and there's, you know, now what?
And you're giving your opponents all the fodder they need to use back against you, right? But yeah, and whatever happened to the idea, to me, the biggest thing about this is, forget about whether it's drag story time or woke education, whatever happened to, that used to be predominantly a very Western, I know it was Canadian thing, of freedom of association. Like you, like I say, there's some people that do some crazy ass shit all the time, every day, like in stuff that we aren't even privy to, right? I mean, think about the Mpox. Think about the Mpox thing, right? I mean, so there's people doing some crazy stuff out there, but say, hey, whatever, as long as you're not forcing.
What's Mpox?
You know, the monkeypox, and you know how that spread.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So there's people.
I thought maybe it had something to do with butt chugging beers or something like that. I mean, there's people doing that too, right?
Yeah. But whatever. But like I say, to each their own. As long as you're not, you know, the basic, you know, the golden rule, and not forcing people. But whatever happened to the idea? This would tamp down so much of the tension in the division if we just got back to the basics of freedom of association. Right.
Well, and the reality is, look, if you have freedom of association, and you know, just kind of live and let live. But people are responsible for their own mistakes and their own vices, right? You would tend to see a lot less vices. You would tend to see a lot less derangement and corruption of morals and virtues or ethics or something. You'd see a lot less kind of Sam Smith satanic pageantry at the Super Bowl, because look, people, if they have to pay for the consequence of their bad habits, their bad choices, their bad decisions, well, they tend to make fewer of those, right? And so I've always said that a libertarian society would trend towards more social conservatism. You would tend to have families stay together, work through issues, have a tight familial bonds. You would you know, there'd be a lot less promiscuity. There'd be a lot less drug addiction and use and stuff. Right now, if you can subsidize promiscuity, if you can subsidize unwanted pregnancies, if you can subsidize drug addiction and debauchery and of all sorts, you're going to get more of that stuff. And so when you get rid of those subsidies, but say, feel free to be a debaucherous fucker if you want, but you're just going to have to pay for it. Well, guess what? You see a lot less debaucherous fuckery happening. Sorry, kids. And by the way, this is not a kids friendly podcast. I'm sorry. I've offended your virginal ears out there. And but I want to bring this back for a second because
for the China.
Okay. we started up with China, went down a few very enjoyable rabbit holes and side rants. And I love it. That's why I love having you on. But I think I have a way of tying this all together because look,
good. Right.
If you're a conservative, what you might be tempted to do here is say, oh, what we need is a law, an anti-China law. We need to, you know what, we need to stop Chinese from buying Vancouver property. We need to, whatever, right? But the simple solution from the libertarian perspective is we just need to shrink government down to the smallest possible thing. Then it doesn't matter if we have a commie for prime minister. It doesn't matter if, if the legislature is full of CCP members straight from the party central itself. If they are limited, chained down, and can't do anything, then it doesn't matter. And in fact, if they can't do anything now, you get rid of them trying to do stuff. You get rid of lobbyists, you get rid of dairy cartels, you get rid of special interests, you get rid of all these things that we like to blame for a problem. But of course the conservatives say, look, those guys shouldn't be oppressing us. It should be our own government oppressing us. We're Canadians, God damn it. I want Trudeau stepping on my neck, not some Chao Xing or whatever his name is.
I want my jackboot to come with fancy socks, right?
That's right. That's right.
But no, actually, you know what? And you're absolutely right. But even when we're just so clarity of language gives clarity of mind. So when you say shrink government, and what I figured out, it's taken me a while, this stuff isn't easy, but once someone does help figure this out, maybe use that kind of knowledge to benefit yourself in some ways. So really what it comes down to, so in my own family, how do I shrink government? I've raised my sons and anyone that's around me, they free their mind. If you free a person's mind so they even just have that basic knowledge, what does it mean to be a free human being? If they have that basis, and that's foundational for what they are or who they are as a human being, then I don't have to tell everyone how to figure. Government will shrink by the fact is I don't need. The problem today is people are told constantly, repeatedly, that like freedom is slavery. It's the old Orwellian thing. They don't even, when I talk to people out in public, most adults still live as adolescents in their mind. Their bodies, right, fully grown, right? They get in the grayer hair when they're getting older. And I see them, I talk to them, and some of them are actually very intelligent in terms of, or I should say, know how to repeat and regurgitate and recycle things that they've seen. But the lack of the critical thinking skills, which is, once again, in a situation, well, what does it mean? Like, how do I vote for this? It's just too much. It's just like the old Adam Smith thing. So there's too much knowledge out there. We can't all know, oh, I got to vote for this person or this person, and that's going to somehow limit this person from being no. Right. If you have freedom in your mind as a state of mind, and you surround yourself with people, starting at the very least in your family, then hopefully in your community, but as many people as you can surround yourself that have that state of mind, then actually, no matter where you live, no matter what kind of regime you live under, unless it goes full totalitarian, right, is you can live as free as humanly possible, at least in the modern era that we live in. And you can expand that because we live in the age of information. So it's always there. The olive branch is already offered to anyone. But I think the great thing now, and this comes down to the whole Chinese thing and stuff, is rather than worrying about voting for a party to affect that, if you want to prevent or be a barricade against more encroachment of authoritarian governments or collectivism, is people like the folks, Dennis, I'm just trying to think of his last name, but the Free State folks down in New Hampshire, right? Yeah. They have got it figured out. I mean, if you went to some of these now, I will mention too, if you want, I'll share that with you. They did an NBC special. It's multi-part series where they actually, believe it or not, establishment outlet, but they went there and they basically, talked to a bunch of the Free Staters. And, if you watch the documentary or the series, you'll see that these people, because they live conducively with each other, they have the live-let mentality, they have the proper principles, they live in a country. I mean, think about it, the U.S. is becoming, certain aspect of it is becoming quite tyrannical, but the decentralization and people's ability to think freely about things at least keeps, tyranny at bay, at least as best you can. Now, if you get to the point where people say, oh yeah, but then there's always the chance that they'll, the barbarians are going to be coming at your door, or the hordes. Well, when that comes, then it's called self-defense. You have to, whatever you want to do, either conform or defend yourself. But in reality, the best thing you can do to prevent, Chinese communism for taking, well, I wouldn't even say it's communist anymore. I think this third way has been morphed into more fascistic, because I think all the central planners of the world have basically figured out you're not going to install people in corporate boards that are going to do better. No, you just control them by way of, legislation, right? That's the best way to implement, because it seems to be the most efficient way. But the freedom has to start as a state of mind. And that is the thing that we libertarians can bring to the table in spades, because we don't offer, I can't offer, an answer, and neither can you, an answer. What's the best path going forward? I don't know what's best for you. I can never know. No central planner can know what's best for you. Stephen Pola's, Wilkinson, all of them, they all said, oh, interest rates are going to stay long, even right up to a whole generation. These are people with all kinds of data points, and I mean, think of the myriad of information and data they have on a regular basis, and they still got it wrong. So if even these people can't perfect their analysis or the predictions, well, don't ever think that there's anyone else that's going to be able to do it either. So the best thing you do is, like I say, give people, arm them with the tools so that they know what it is to be free. And then, like I say, surround yourself with the kind of people that have that kind of like mind as much as and as best you can, and lead by example. Because when people see, what works best, then that, like I say, they'll just automatically gravitate. You don't have to coerce them, cajole them, or do anything. Once again, you can do your live, let live. And I think that's the best plan for us going forward in terms of keeping China at bay.
Yeah, take personal responsibility. Yeah, and this was a lesson that as a younger libertarian was hard won, right? It's like constantly shaking your fists at the state and the external environment and that sort of thing. I mean, it puts you kind of in a victim mentality. It puts you in a helpless mentality too. It's like, if that external environment doesn't change, if that government doesn't change, how can I be happy? How can I be free? How can I be fulfilled? And of course, eventually, as you mature, you realize, okay, look, I can't be a victim my whole life. I have to finally take control of my mindset, look at my agency, and make my own choices, and be responsible for expanding my own freedom, despite the fact that these bastards are out here doing their evil stuff. Yeah. And so I think that is it's probably a good place to end things. We're coming up on we're over 45 minutes. So Bennett, where can people go to follow you, hear more of your stuff? What do you got on the go?
Okay, well, I'm still a Canadian Libertarian, and I'm all over the place: YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. I'm verified on Twitter. I just had to do it just for the heck of it, right? Because it was for so long the only people that could have that big fancy blue badge, were the elite, and it's kind of cool now that Elon has given us peons the ability to be put on par on the same level as the upper echelons of society. But it based on Odyssey and Rumble, and I will mention too, as far as if anyone needs to reach out to me for anything. I have a Gmail account, Canadian Libertarian BH. I use that. I have a Proton mail if you want to do things in a more secure manner. That's Canadian Libertarian. So basically, like I say, I'm out there on the social media, still doing my thing, doing live streams, and I haven't been doing a whole lot of standalone videos, but I have. I'm gonna just say one more thing there, Tim, is I have come around to, and people like Michael Malice has helped in this way too, is like you say, so we know the red pill, blue pill, but the black pill and white pill is a thing that I've been kind of paying attention to. And I'm definitely seeing a lot of green shoots in terms of people, finding out ways to not feel so defeated and being more positive, because I mean, there's lots to be positive for, right? I mean, historically, we're not so far as of yet anyways, right? We're not in the trenches. We have some pretty good things at our disposal. We now have private businesses, right? I mean, Elon's just one man. People say, what can one man do? Now, of course, he does have a whole lot of people on, that back and support him. So it's not necessarily just one man, but the ideas may have come from one man. But so now you're seeing real world examples that nobody can say anymore. For a long time, people could say, well, you need government for this. It used to be that you needed government. There's only 4 countries in the world that could take men to space, right? And it used to be that was a universal thing. You need government, or at least people believe that you need government to go to space. But we know you don't need government to go to space, right? And Twitter, I mean, Elon Musk spent $44 billion to have at least one platform, that gives you the ability to not have to just sit down, shut up, and go along to get along with the status quo. No, you have the ability and the capacity now to get your voices out there if you want. And that's just the beginning, folks. That's just the beginning. There's always ample opportunity if we're willing to fight for it and do what needs to do. We need to put the work into it. The sky is truly the limit. I mean, matter of fact, Mars isn't even the the end of humanity. So come on, folks, let's try to stay on the positive side of thing. And I really support you, Tim, for come back. I know how hard things be. I stepped away myself, and I was like, it'd be nice to have some fellow travelers in terms of libertarians around, because I seem kind of alone there as of late. But it's nice to see you're back in the fray. And like I say, if you ever want to reach out and have a conversation again anytime.
Yeah, well, I think we definitely have to do some live streams together and, talk about some of, it raises, you're right. We're going to the stars, right? We're going to the rest of the solar system. Forget about globalism. We're going to be dealing with solar systemism in about 2 decades, and we're going to be begging for globalism as a hedge against solar systemism. So just like the nationalists beg for nationalism as a hedge. Anyways, all right, I digress. I could go on about that, but thanks so much for joining me, and audience. If you want to be part of the conversation, get involved in live streams, come join me over at locals.com. You can support me there. I'm trying to grow this into something that I do more regularly, more full-time. I've worked a ton of overtime over the past year. I've been the glue holding the socialist healthcare system here in Alberta together. And I'm just tired of being that glue. I want to, live life for myself and produce more of the stuff I love and that I think you love. So head on over to locals.com. Podcasts and shows drop at least a day early there. So this will be dropping at least a day earlier than it will to folks out in Spotify and podcast land. But anyways, thanks again, Bennett. We'll catch you on the flip side. Hopefully we'll do a live stream soon.
All right. Thanks, Tim, for everything you've done, man. I really appreciate it.
Awesome.